Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a look at, well, maybe a slightly unexpected topic for us in this detail, but it's packed with fascinating data. The global market for grenade launchers.
That's right.
We've got this really detailed market analysis report. It's called Global Grenade Launcher Market Analysis and Forecast 2021-2033. It breaks down sales, projections, all that good stuff across regions and countries. Our mission for you today is really to cut through the raw data, find those aha moments. What do these numbers actually tell us about global defense spending, maybe modernization trends?
Exactly. And what's fascinating here, I think, isn't just the sheer amount of money involved, but how specific the data gets.
Yeah.
It lets us sort of map out the economic currents behind military buying decisions worldwide.
Right.
So yeah, we'll unpack these numbers, look at the significant growth that's projected, and think about what it all means for the bigger picture of global security.
Okay, let's get into it then. We're talking about a market that globally was already worth over $2 billion just a few years back.
A substantial starting point.
Yeah, but here's where it gets really interesting. The report projects quite a dramatic expansion from there. So the source tells us the global market for these launchers hit around $2.2 billion in 2021.
Okay.
But it's projected to climb, get this, to nearly $2.9 billion by 2025. And then it almost doubles that initial figure, hitting a pretty staggering $4.6 billion by 2033.
Wow.
Yeah, that reflects a solid 6.3% compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, over more than a decade.
And if we connect that to the bigger picture, I mean, it's not just random numbers, right? It's showing a consistent, pretty strong growth path over 12 years for this very specific kind of weapon.
Right.
So that raises a key question for us.
Yeah.
Which regions are really pushing this expansion? And, what underlying shifts does that tell us about their defense priorities?
Okay, good question. Let's dive into those regional breakdowns because the picture does vary quite a bit. It reveals some, well, compelling stories, I think.
Yeah, what's fascinating is how clearly some regions are leading the charge, while others show maybe more emerging growth, but it's still significant.
Hey.
It paints a really detailed picture of where defense spending is picking up speed.
So digging into that regional data, it seems pretty clear Asia-Pacific is setting the pace.
Definitely stands out.
Yeah, this market had a big slice of the pie, starting near $900 million back in 2021. And it's forecast to reach over $1.9 billion by 2033. That's a robust CAGR of almost 6.6%.
And within Asia-Pacific, China really held the lead there. Its market size is set to more than double, from about $355 million in 2021 to over $770 million by 2033.
Wow.
But beyond China, the report also highlights, significant contributions from Japan, India, South Korea, Australia.
Okay.
And interestingly, Southeast Asian nations like Singapore and Taiwan also showed a pretty sharp upward curve.
Right.
So this suggests, I think, a broad regional focus on defense upgrades, probably driven by changing security perceptions and maybe a push towards more self-reliance in military tech.
Wow. That makes sense. Now, North America isn't far behind in total value, expanding from nearly $570 million in 2021 to a forecast of over $1.1 billion in 2033. The CAGR there is steady, 6.1%. So consistent growth, but maybe a different kind of story than Asia-Pacific.
Absolutely. The U.S., as you'd expect, dominates this region, figures rising from about $460 million in 2021 to over $930 million by 2033.
Right.
Canada and Mexico also show consistent growth, hitting over $118 million and $110 million respectively by 2033. So what this tells us is maybe more of a sustained investment rather than that explosive growth we saw elsewhere. It's about modernizing existing arsenals, reflecting ongoing defense needs.
Okay, steady modernization. Got it. Let's move across the Atlantic. Europe saw sales reaching around $500 million in 2021, and it's forecast to basically double to just under $1 billion by 2033.
Yeah, and here Germany led the European market, projections from about $109 million up to over $212 million. Then you have the UK reaching over $150 million, France over $117 million.
Okay.
But what's really striking, and maybe the most telling part, is the rest of Europe category.
Ah, right.
This group, representing smaller, mid-sized European nations, jumped significantly, from 45 million up to nearly 140 million. And it boasts the highest regional CGR in Europe, almost 8.5%.
That is interesting. What does that suggest?
Well, it really indicates significant, maybe more localized and perhaps urgent modernization efforts across these nations. It suggests a pretty widespread reevaluation of defense needs, maybe especially happening after 2021.
That's a fascinating insight. So the growth isn't just the major powers. All right, the Middle East market also showed impressive growth, moved from just under 96 million in 2021 to a projected 223 million in 2033. And you mentioned this earlier, showing the highest overall regional CAGR at 6.8%.
Indeed. Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the UAE, Egypt to Qatar, they all showed strong growth paths in this region. The UAE in particular stood out with a CAGR over 7%. This really points to robust defense spending and modernization in, well, a geopolitically very significant region. Defense readiness is a constant priority there, and investments in versatile, adaptable weapons systems seem crucial.
Right. Okay, rounding out the regions. Africa posted around $73 million in 2021, expanding to over 167 million by 2033. That's a healthy 6.7% CAGR, with Nigeria and South Africa leading. South America, while it had the lowest CAGR at 5.3%, still showed growth from about 98 million up to over 181 million. Brazil, Argentina, Colombia are the key markets there.
Yeah, and even with those varying growth rates, these regions, collectively contribute significantly to the overall upward trend.
Sure.
It reflects a global push for defense upgrades, maybe at different stages of development, but it emphasizes that military modernization is really a worldwide thing now, not just confined to specific hotspots.
Okay, so what does this all mean then? We've seen billions of dollars, pretty dramatic growth rates, regional hotspots popping up. The source points to a few key drivers behind this global growth, and this is where the numbers start to tell a story about global security, right?
Absolutely. The report basically boils it down to three main factors. First, the ongoing modernization of armed forces, just generally, worldwide. Second, those regional defense upgrades, which we've seen pretty clearly in the numbers we just talked about.
Yeah.
And third, an increasing demand for versatile weapon systems across different types of operations. So this raises an important question for you. How do these broad trends actually show up in the specific spending patterns we just discussed?
Okay, yeah, let's pick that apart. Those three factors, modernization, regional upgrades, versatility, they're really the engine here. So when we talk about the modernization of armed forces, what exactly does that mean for grenade launchers? Is it just replacing old ones, or is it something more fundamental about what these weapons do now?
It's definitely more than just replacement, I think. The report indicates a shift towards lighter systems, more technologically advanced ones.
Okay.
Modern grenade launchers often have things like smart targeting capabilities, better optics, and they can fire a whole range of ammunition types.
Yeah.
From standard high explosive to less lethal rounds, even specialized stuff like anti-armor or door-breaching munitions.
Right. Much more flexible.
Exactly. That versatility makes them incredibly attractive for forces wanting to give soldiers multi-role capabilities.
Yeah.
Especially, say, in urban settings or hybrid warfare situations where you need precision and adaptability. It's really about more firepower, but in a lighter, smarter package.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay, then diving into the second point, the regional defense upgrades. We saw that big growth in Asia-Pacific and that surprising surge in the rest of Europe. Is the report giving any specific reasons why these regions or others are prioritizing this kind of upgrade now?
Well, the report doesn't get overtly political,
Right.
naturally,
Yeah.
but it does implicitly point towards these evolving security landscapes.
Okay.
In Asia-Pacific, for example, you can probably link the growth to nations strengthening their own defense posture, maybe in response to perceived regional instabilities or, competing strategic interests. It's about making sure their forces are equipped for different kinds of situations. In Europe, especially in that rest of Europe category we highlighted, that big jump likely reflects a broader rethinking of defense spending and capabilities,
Yeah.
especially among nations that maybe historically relied more heavily on bigger allies. There seems to be a clear trend towards boosting individual national defense capacities.
Right. So it's not just spending more money, but spending it on specific capabilities that are seen as essential for today's conflicts. Which brings us to the third point, the increasing demand for versatile weapon systems. How do grenade launchers fit into that bigger picture?
Oh, they're a prime example. Modern warfare often demands agility, adaptability.
Right.
A soldier who has a versatile grenade launcher can engage different kinds of targets, personnel out in the open, light vehicles, even fortified positions, without needing to lug around multiple specialized weapons.
Yes. Simplifies things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the ability to switch between, say, high explosive, smoke, illumination, or even less lethal rounds, pretty much on the fly, gives commanders significant tactical flexibility. That capability is just invaluable for Infantry on foot, special forces, units operating in complex places, it makes them a really crucial part of a modern soldier's kit.
Okay, understood. So today we've taken quite a deep dive into this global grenade launcher market. We've uncovered billions in projected growth driven by, as you said, defense modernization, strategic regional upgrades, and this increasing demand for versatile weapons.
Hmm.
It really is a powerful illustration, I think, of how market data, which can seem dry, actually offers a unique and maybe surprising window into global strategic shifts and military priorities.
Absolutely. This deep dive really shows us that behind every market statistic, there's this complex web of geopolitical realities, national defense priorities. It's not just about the numbers themselves, what they imply about global stability, the changing nature of conflict, and the technological race in military capabilities.
Right. So for you, our listener, here's a thought to mull over as we wrap up. How might these specific market trends just in this one segment of grenade launchers reflect even broader patterns, maybe patterns in global alliances, emerging threats we haven't touched on, or even shifts in military doctrine that aren't immediately obvious just from looking at sales figures? What other questions does this data spark for you about the future of defense spending?
Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking a closer look at a really specific area of the defense industry, but one with pretty significant strategic implications. We're talking about the global grenade launchers market.
That's right.
Our mission, like always, is to sort of distill the key knowledge from expert analysis. We want to give you a clear picture of the main drivers, the restraints, and maybe some surprising trends shaping this whole landscape.
Yeah, and hopefully give you some insights that, add a bit of depth to how you see global defense.
Exactly.
And it's important, I think, to stress this isn't just about the hardware, the launchers themselves.
Right.
We're looking at how modern defense thinking, tech innovation, and major world events all kind of mesh together. They dictate why and how these systems get developed and, actually used. It's about connecting those dots.
Okay, good point. So let's jump right in. What's actually powering this market? What are the key drivers?
Well, a really big one is the push for modernizing infantry weapons. You see it pretty much everywhere. Armed forces, especially the U.S., NATO countries, India, parts of Eastern Europe too, they're all investing heavily in upgrading what their ground troops carry.
And grenade launchers fit into that how?
They're seen as crucial force multipliers. That's the term they use.
Force multipliers, meaning?
Meaning one weapon, or maybe one soldier with that weapon, can have a much bigger impact. They seriously boost firepower, but critically, they let troops stay mobile.
Ah, okay. So more bang without slowing them down too much.
Precisely. And we're definitely seeing a clear rise in procurement, both the standalone kind, the dedicated launchers,
Yeah,
and the underbarrel types, the ones that clip right onto a rifle.
right. Turning a standard rifle into something more versatile.
Exactly. And these are becoming super popular. Not just regular forces, but special operations units love them too.
That connects to another point, doesn't it? The rise in counterterrorism and urban warfare.
Absolutely. What's fascinating there is how those specific environments, cities, built-up areas, they create this demand for weapons that can breach things, walls, doors, and also suppress targets hiding inside structures.
Right. Targets you can't easily hit with direct fire.
Precisely. So grenade launchers give a real tactical edge in those close quarter situations. And also in asymmetric conflicts.
Like fighting insurgencies.
Yeah, exactly. Where the fight isn't, army versus army, they've become pretty much indispensable for city fighting or dealing with insurgent groups.
Okay, and there's a tech angle too, right? Integration.
Oh, definitely. This is where it gets quite interesting, actually.
How so?
Modern rifles are becoming way more modular. You can customize them, add things on.
Like Lego for soldiers.
Sort of, yeah. And that drives demand for grenade launchers that can easily fit into that system. Launchers compatible with, say, smart optics, night vision, and even programmable ammo.
Programmable ammo, you mean like?
Yeah, you can tell the grenade exactly when to explode, like detonate 3 meters past that window in the air.
Wow, okay. That's a leap.
It is. So armies aren't just buying launchers, they're investing in these whole multifunctional systems with advanced fire control. That spending is really pushing the tech forward.
Okay, so strong drivers, but it can't be all smooth sailing. What about the hurdles, the restraints?
There are definitely some big ones.
I imagine regulations must be tight.
Extremely. You've got stringent international arms regulations, export controls. things like the Arms Trade Treaty, the Wassenaar Arrangement.
Right, those govern international weapons sales.
Exactly. And they really do limit things. They prevent exports to regions deemed high risk or countries under sanctions. And that naturally shrinks the potential market for manufacturers looking to sell abroad.
Makes sense. What else?
Yeah.
Cost must be a factor.
Oh, absolutely. If we connect this to the sort of bigger financial picture,
Yeah.
the cost is huge, especially for the advanced stuff.
You mean beyond the basic launcher itself?
Yeah. A simple launcher might be, well, relatively affordable in military terms. But then you start looking at systems that fire those programmable airburst rounds we mentioned,
Okay.
or ones with laser-guided optics for incredible accuracy. The price just skyrockets.
So it's not just buying it, it's affording the whole package and keeping it running.
Right. The acquisition cost plus the maintenance.
Mm.
For countries with tighter defense budgets, that's a major, major hurdle. It can stop them from adopting the latest tech widely.
And beyond money and rules, there are practical on-the-ground issues too.
Yes, definitely. The operational limitations. And the risks.
Risks like collateral damage.
Exactly. That's a big one. Grenade launchers are effective, no doubt, but they carry this inherent risk of harming civilians unintentionally, especially in cities.
Yeah, I can see that. A grenade in a dense urban area. That's
Yeah.
tricky.
Very. So imagine a peacekeeping force in a crowded city. Even if tactically it makes sense to use a launcher, the risk of hitting the wrong target might be too high. This leads to really strict rules of engagement, strict protocols on when and how they can be used.
Which might limit how often they're actually deployed, even if they're available.
Precisely. So that can constrain their adoption, particularly for peacekeeping or humanitarian type missions, where avoiding civilian harm is absolutely paramount. It's a tough balancing act.
Okay, so drivers pushing growth, restraints holding it back.
Yeah.
Where's this all heading? What are the big trends shaping the future here?
Well, one of the most transformative is definitely the emergence of smart grenade launchers.
Smart launchers, like the programmable ammo ones.
Exactly. Think systems like the US XM-25, which maybe had some teething issues but showed the concept, or South Korea's K-11. These are kind of revolutionary.
What makes them so different?
They integrate everything. The programmable airburst grenades we talked about, laser rangefinders build right in, digital targeting systems.
So the soldier can pinpoint a target, measure the distance instantly, and program the grenade to detonate right there.
That's the idea. It massively boosts precision, lethality too, but also, importantly, cuts down on wasted ammo. Fewer shots needed.
Makes them a strategic investment for, well, wealthier militaries, I suppose.
For technologically advanced forces, yes.
Interesting. What else is trending?
Another big area is the development of non-lethal and multi-purpose ammunition.
Ah, so moving beyond just high explosives.
Exactly. This raises an important question. How else can these platforms be used? We're seeing launchers adapted for things like tear gas canisters.
For crowd control.
Yes, or rubber rounds, flashbangs,
Yeah.
stuff like that.
So extending their use to law enforcement, peacekeeping.
Right. That versatility is really broadening their operational reach. It's moving into civil defense, riot control, making the launcher a more flexible tool.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. One more trend.
Yeah, there's a noticeable increase in adoption by very specific groups, special forces and paramilitary units.
The elite guys. Why them specifically?
They have very particular needs. They often want gear that's compact, lightweight, but still highly flexible and effective.
And certain grenade launchers fit that profile.
They do, especially the underbarrel types that attach to rifles or the revolver-style launchers that can carry multiple rounds but are still relatively portable.
And their missions often involve.
Counterinsurgency, hybrid warfare, situations where that kind of adaptable firepower is critical. So these systems become really crucial tactical assets for those elite teams.
Okay, so if we bring all this together, what's the big picture?
Well, what we're seeing is this market being shaped by a powerful mix of things, really.
Yeah, it seems like a convergence. You've got militaries modernizing across the board.
Right. Then the specific needs created by modern conflicts, especially in cities, and layered on top of that, this rapid technological change. Next-gen systems, smart features.
It's a dynamic space, for sure. Complex.
Definitely. And maybe a final thought for you, the listener, to chew on.
Go for it.
As these systems keep evolving, especially getting more precise and being used for more than just lethal force, how might that change our whole understanding of, say, tactical operations, or even public safety in the coming years, the coming decades?
That's a really interesting question to ponder. How does increasing precision and versatility change the game?
Something to think about.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive. We really hope exploring complex topics like this one offers you some unique insights into the world around you.
Also, too.
We'll catch you next time on the Deep Dive.